So now let's move on to human development. So human development, and this is a really, really important definition because, HHD, health and human development. It refers to creating an environment in which people can develop to their full potential and then lead productive, creative lives in accordance with their needs and interests. It is about expanding people's choices and enhancing capabilities and having access to knowledge, health, and decent standard of living. Okay, and participating in the community and decisions affecting lives. Okay, so that was a whole mouthful. But as you can see, I've sort of split it up into these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. Okay, and these 5 parts break down into 9 little aspects. So develop to their full potential, lead productive and creative lives in accordance with their needs and interests, expanding people's choices, enhancing capabilities, access to knowledge, access to health, access to a decent standard of living, and participating in their community, and participate in decisions affecting their lives. Okay, so what do these 9 aspects mean? What you need to be able to do, just like we did for health and well-being, where we had the different definitions and characteristics, dimensions rather, here you need to be able to link back, anytime it's like, how does this impact human development, you need to be able to link it back to these 9 little aspects. So it can take a bit of time, but the best way that you can help, remember all of these is by doing more and more practice questions. All right. So the more practice you do, the better you're just going to get at it. Because that's the way it generally is, because you're practicing recalling this information from your brain. So I highly recommend, whilst it's really important to be able to memorize all of these, the most important thing is that you're able to apply them into a different scenario, into a different program. So, for example, we've got VCAR question 20 from 2021, question 11b, okay? It's a 4-mark question, and it asks you to explain how a lack of basic water services in healthcare facilities could have an impact on human development. So what you need to do is be able to link a lack of basic water services in healthcare facilities to being able to develop to your full potential, lead productive and creative lives in accordance with your needs and interests, expanding people's choices and enhancing capabilities, access to knowledge, health, and a decent standard of living, and participating in the community and participating in decisions affecting their lives. Okay, so now let's break the question down even further. What does a lack of basic water services in healthcare facilities lead to? Well, water in healthcare facilities is needed, for example, for a surgeon to wash their hand, for example, to clean your bed sheets or whatever, to make sure that there's infection control. The other thing that water is used to is for drinking, to clean surfaces, whatever it is, it's to ensure that there's a lack of infection happening and a lack of dehydration. Okay, so as a result of a lack of basic water services, there's going to be a lack of infection control, and there's going to be more risk of dehydration. As a result, you need to be able to link it to like 2 little aspects and be able to explain it really well, right? So for example, a lack of basic water services can lead to a lack of ability to clean and maintain hygienic conditions to reduce infectious diseases spreading in healthcare facilities. All right. As a result of infectious diseases spreading, that can inhibit a person's ability to develop to their full potential, right? Because you're going to have people that are not being able to develop properly as a result of being sick, as a result of obtaining an illness, for example. As a result of that, you're less able to go to work, go to school, and less able to lead productive lives in accordance with their needs, right? Because you're unable to earn money to take care of your family or whatever it is. And then as a result of that, that kid might not be able to go to school, may not be able to access knowledge and participate in the community, right? So it's sort of from that one answer, you need to be able to sort of link it to all these different aspects of human development. Now, let's look at a VCAR sample answer. And note here that 39% of the state did not get this to answer anything. So it's really important that if you're unsure of how to answer a question, at least write some dot points, at least write something down, especially when you're out of time, to ensure that you don't get nothing, right? It's better to get 1 mark or 2 marks than to get 0 marks. All right, so that's just an exam skill. But for this question, most students could identify aspects of human development, right? So the ones we have listed here, but many did not make meaningful links between lack of access to water in healthcare facilities and human development. Okay, and there was just a lack of discussion about water. So in this high scoring response, they talked about more people are exposed to the risk of infections and susceptibility diseases, especially waterborne diseases like cholera and diarrheal diseases. Right, more adults are going to have ongoing infectious diseases, meaning they can't return to work. And they're not able to earn an income to afford basic needs like food, shelter, and clothing, preventing them from having a decent standard of living, right? So they linked it to this one. Then they also talked about how more children might be displaced due to their parents, from their parents due to being ill, right? And having diseases that are prolonged. And then children might not be able to attend school, meaning that children cannot be educated and their choices and capabilities are not enhanced for their future benefit. Alright, and as you can see here, they talked about choices and capabilities are not being enhanced, right? So you don't need to specifically say negatively impacting their ability to enhance capabilities. You can obviously change the wording of each of these aspects to suit the question. In fact, that's really encouraged because it shows you have a deeper understanding of human development. Okay, so there are many questions of these, so having a go at linking it to human development is really, really important. Alright, so the factors they've linked it to here are lack of basic water services, preventing them from having a decent standard of living. Then we've got a lack of basic water services, meaning their choices and capabilities are not being enhanced. Alrighty. So we've done human development, and now we need to have a look at the Human Development Index. So it's actually known as short the HDI. It's a measure of human development, right? So we've learned about human development, and now we need to find a way to measure it. It's developed by the United Nations, and countries are assigned a number from 0 to 1, okay? It's better than the GNI because it takes into account socioeconomic factors. Whilst the GNI per capita, just measures how much money an individual has on average in that country, this has a look at socioeconomic factors. This combines dimensions of long and healthy life, knowledge, and decent standard of living. Okay? And then each of these dimensions has its own indicators. So for example, we have a long and healthy life. That dimension has the indicator of life expectancy at birth. Okay? And this indicator means the number of years a person can expect to live at birth if death rates do not change. It is really, really important that you include this life expectancy at birth, because in past papers, VCA has been really strict about, students did not say at birth, so that we can't give them the marks. So make sure you write life expectancy at birth. And then for the dimension of knowledge, the indicators that we use are expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling. Expected years of schooling refers to the number of years of formal schooling that is expected to be achieved by those entering the school system. Whereas the mean years of schooling is the average number of years of schooling achieved by those aged 25 and over. So we're measuring two different demographics of the population. We're measuring the 25 and over, and then the people that are just entering the school system. And then the final dimension is a decent standard of living, and that's measured using our initial indicator, which was gross national income per capita, which is obviously in US dollars. The average income a person in a country gets once debts to other countries have been paid, okay? So we're having a look at how to measure human development. However, there are going to be advantages and limitations to this. So please note, dimensions are what you're measuring, and indicators are what you use to measure the dimensions. So what are some advantages and limitations of this one? So one advantage is that the HDI is a single statistic. It means that you can easily make comparisons between the countries and between past data of your own country. You're not going to have to look at all these different complicated graphs. It sort of condenses it into this one number of like 0.9, 0.5, 0.3. Alright, and it makes sure that you can see if there's been improvements or decreases, and then have a look further if you need more information. However, a limitation is that it's based on averages. Again, it does not provide an indication of the inequalities within a country. So there might be one region of the country that just has really, really high years of mean years of schooling, right? So there might be people that have completed the entire education system all the way to tertiary, whereas there might be many more people in that country that have lower years of schooling. However, due to that, inequality, it's not being reflected because it's an average. It means that it's less accurate to what's being experienced by each individual. However, the HDI has captured the attention of media, policymakers, and communities in the past and raised awareness of the importance of human development globally. So sometimes you'll see all of these posts about and these news stories about how Australia has reached the top, or Norway's in the top, Sweden's in the top, and there are lots of countries that are trying to ensure that they have good human development, right, and that they focus on improving on the areas that they're not as good at. However, there's something that each of these indicators are not really a measure of the quality, right? So for example, mean and expected years of quality of schooling does not measure the quality of education. And same with life expectancy. All it does is measure the quantity of life. It might not measure how many years of healthy life is expected for an individual in that country. So it means that it's not as it's very much like a numerical approach, whereas in real life, it does not necessarily mean that human development is achieved just because we have this really high life expectancy. If you're going to spend most of that, being sick, unwell, or, not having good education. Okay? One advantage, though, is that it considers more than just average incomes, right? You're not just looking at, how much money each individual person earns, because that doesn't really reflect all of the 9 aspects of human development. It's a really comprehensive account of human development. However, it neglects key aspects of human development like your freedom, your choices and capabilities, participation in the community, right? All it looks at is really like your knowledge, your number of years you can expect to live, right? And then the number of money you have, the amount of money you have, okay? And again, there's no survey data being collected. It's all about, these specific numerical numbers. It might not really reflect how people feel about their lives and their issues in their communities. Okay, so it definitely has its advantage, and it's definitely a step up from GNI per capita, but it has its own limitations, just as each unit of measurement in anything does. Okay, so using all that information we just learnt about the HDI, we're going to have a look at this question from 2019. Okay, it's a 4-mark question, and it states, use 2 indicators of human development to explain the differences in HDI between Australia and Papua New Guinea. Okay, so this specific question is a 2-mark question because we're looking at question 6A, so not 4 marks. And it states in the information, we have Australia has a HDI of 0.939 in 2017, whereas Papua New Guinea had a HDI of 0.544. And the World Bank classifies Australia as a high-income country and Papua New Guinea as a middle-income country. Okay? So, indicators of human development, right? So if we have a look back here, these are the indicators and these are the dimensions. So, what are the differences in between Australia and Papua New Guinea using these indicators? So, for example, one indicator we might use is life expectancy at birth. So we could say Australia is more likely to have a higher HDI of 0.939 due to having a higher life expectancy at birth than Papua New Guinea, which had a lower HDI of 0.544. And then for mark number 2, for point number 2, another indicator is GNI per capita. So as the World Bank classifies Australia as a high-income country, it is more likely to have a higher GNI per capita. Okay? As a result, it's more likely to have a higher HDI of 0.939 compared to Papua New Guinea, which is a middle-income country and has a HDI of 0.544. Okay? So you can see here, the most common error was to simply identify the indicators and not reference Papua New Guinea or Australia. So don't do that. Make sure you're actually, using it to explain the differences between the countries, and also make sure that you use the specific wording of life expectancy at birth and GNI per capita. So here's the sample answer. GNI per capita, Australia, a high-income country, has a much higher GNI per capita compared to Papua New Guinea because Australia has a higher average income. Okay? And the life expectancy at birth, Australia has a higher life expectancy than Papua New Guinea. And it's okay to say life expectancy after you said life expectancy at birth, but don't just immediately start saying life expectancy because you won't get the mark.